The room was quiet except for the faint sound of metal scraping against metal. A wrench turned slowly in strong, calloused hands. The smell of oil and burnt metal hung in the air like a memory that refused to fade. Sergeant Cole Dawson sat on the floor of his small maintenance room, his back resting against a cold wall of the space station. He was still wearing his undershirt, its fabric stained with sweat and old engine grease. In front of him lay the remains of his combat armor, dull, cracked and scarred by the fire of battle. Every piece of that armor had a story. Every dent was a memory. Cole's rough fingers moved with the care of a man touching something sacred. He unscrewed the panel on his chest plate, revealing wires that had melted and fused during the last mission on Varnus Ridge. That name alone made his jaw tighten. He could still hear the screams, still smell the smoke, still see the faces of the men who didn't make it out. He had been fixing his armor for hours, maybe longer. The station clock on the wall blinked silently, but he didn't care what time it was. Time didn't mean much anymore. The battle had ended months ago, but for Cole it never really stopped. He didn't fight now, not out there anyway. He fought in here, inside his head every day. He tightened one last bolt and leaned back, breathing hard. His muscles ached, but the ache felt good. It reminded him he was still alive. He reached out and ran his fingers over the faded insignia on the shoulder plate. The Terran Eagle, symbol of the old Earth Army. Most people didn't wear it anymore. Too old, too many lost wars, but Cole couldn't take it off. It was the last thing that still felt like home. He whispered quietly, "You kept me alive out there, didn't you, girl?" He wasn't talking to anyone in particular, just to the armor, to the silent, faithful thing that had protected him through hell. Then a soft sound broke the silence, a faint hiss as the door to his quarters slid open. "Sergeant Dawson?" The voice was light and musical, almost glowing with warmth. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. It was Lura, the alien maid assigned to his section of the station. Cole sighed, keeping his eyes on the armor. "Not now, Lura, I'm busy," but she didn't leave. He heard her careful footsteps, light, almost floating. Yulari didn't walk like humans did. They seemed to glide, their translucent skin shimmering faintly like glass catching sunlight. "I brought you something," she said softly. He glanced up, annoyed at first, then paused. She was standing there holding a folded gray blanket and a small tray with food. Simple station rations, but warm. Her skin reflected the dim blue light of the room, making her look almost unreal. "You haven't eaten today?" she said, her voice calm but firm. Cole turned back to his tools. "I'm not hungry." "You said that yesterday," she replied. He gave a small grunt, tightening another screw. "I said I'm fine." Lura tilted her head slightly, her bright eyes watching him with quiet concern. "You worked too long on that armor," she said. "It's broken, Sergeant, maybe." "Maybe you should rest instead of trying to fix something that cannot heal." Cole stopped moving. His hand froze on the metal. The words hit him harder than she probably meant them to. He looked at the cracked helmet lying beside him. The visor was shattered right through the middle, the same blow that had almost taken his life. He could still remember the sound of it breaking, the flash of light, the scream in his comm from his squad mate Harris. And then, nothing but static. "Yeah," he muttered. Like everything else, Lura didn't speak for a moment. She placed the food tray gently on the table and stepped closer. "Humans, you always try to fix things with your hands," she said quietly. "On my world, when something breaks, we do not throw it away. But we do not try to make it the same again either." Cole gave a short, bitter laugh. "Yessa, and what do you do instead?" "We sing to it," she said simply. That made him look up. "You sing to broken things?" She nodded, her glass-like skin catching the soft light. "We sing to thank them for what they gave us. Even if they cannot serve anymore, they deserve peace." Cole stared at her, trying to understand. It sounded strange, but also gentle. Too gentle for a soldier's world. He looked back at his armor, his throat tightening. "This kept me alive," he whispered. "Feels wrong to just let it go." Lura smiled sadly. "Then perhaps, Sergeant, it is not the armor that you're trying to fix." Her words hung in the air like a quiet truth he didn't want to face. For the first time in a long while, Cole felt something inside him shift. Small, fragile, but real. He didn't know if it was anger, sorrow, or maybe the start of healing. He lowered his wrench slowly, and for the first time that day, He let himself breathe. The next morning came quietly as it always did on the station. There was no sunrise here, only the slow shift of the lights from cold blue to soft white, meant to remind humans what morning used to feel like. Sergeant Cole Dawson was still awake when the lights changed. He had fallen asleep sitting against the wall, his tools still scattered around him. The armor pieces glimmered dully under the artificial glow, half polished, half forgotten. He woke with a stiff neck and a heavy mind. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw the food tray on the table, untouched, and remembered everything. Laura, her words, her soft voice saying, "Perhaps it is not the armor that you are trying to fix." Cole rubbed his eyes and sighed. The memory of her tone, gentle but knowing, somehow bothered him more than it should have. The door slid open again with a quiet hiss. "Good morning, Sergeant Dawson." Her voice again. Calm, polite, musical. Laura stepped into the room, carrying a small cleaning device and a folded cloth. The light reflected off her translucent blue skin, making her look like she was made of starlight. Cole grunted. "You don't give up, do you?" "Persistence," she said softly, "is a lesson humans taught me." He looked at her, trying not to smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched anyway. "Didn't mean to teach you that one." She gave a small smile, one that barely moved her lips but softened her whole face. "Still, I learned." Cole turned his attention back to his gear, pretending to be busy. The truth was, he didn't know how to talk to her. He was a soldier trained to shoot, survive, follow orders. But words like hers, soft and honest, always found the cracks in his armor faster than any bullet. "Do you fix things every day?" she asked after a moment, wiping the dust off a shelf. "Yeah," he said, not looking up. "It's what I do. Fix things that break." She stopped cleaning. "And when you can't?" He didn't answer. The silence between them stretched until she spoke again, gently. "Do you fix yourself too, Sergeant?" That made him stop. The question sat in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. He took a deep breath. "Soldiers don't get fixed," he said finally. "We just get patched up and sent back out." Laura lowered her eyes. "Then perhaps soldiers need someone who knows how to fix without fighting." Cole gave a tired chuckle. "That sounds like your way of saying I'm hopeless." She shook her head slowly. "No, you are human. That means you keep trying, even when you shouldn't have to." He stared at her, surprised. Yalari didn't talk like that. Most spoke in polite tones, distant and formal. But Laura, she seemed to understand pain in a way that made her words heavy with meaning. "Why are you even here, Laura?" he asked quietly. "You could have worked on one of those clean research decks, somewhere safe away from old soldiers like me." Her glowing eyes met his. "Because I wanted to see the kind of beings who fight for others," she said. "On my world, we do not fight. We run, we hide, we survive. But you humans, you protect even when it costs you everything." Her voice trembled slightly at the end, almost as if she was confessing something. Cole looked away, unsure what to say. He didn't feel like a protector. He felt like a survivor, just another broken man trying to find purpose in a galaxy that had already moved on without him. He picked up his helmet again, running a finger over the crack in the visor. "Doesn't feel noble when you're the one left behind," he muttered. Laura stepped closer. "But you stayed alive. That means something," he gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, to who?" "To me," she said simply. The room went quiet. The hum of the station filled the silence, low and steady. Cole felt something twist in his chest, something small like a spark under ashes. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that. "Laura," he said after a moment, his voice rough. "Back on your planet. When someone loses everything, what do they do?" She thought for a while before answering. "We sit by the sea. We let the tide take away what hurts. Then we sing, not to forget, but to remember gently." He nodded slowly. "Humans don't have seas out here. Just metal walls." "Then maybe," she said softly, "you need to learn to sing between them." Cole chuckled quietly, shaking his head. "You really think singing fixes anything?" "It fixes hearts," she replied. "And that is where your war still lives." Her words sank deep, deeper than she could know. Cole looked at her again, this fragile, glowing being who somehow saw straight through him. He didn't answer her. Not with words, at least, but when she placed a hand gently on the cracked helmet, he didn't stop her. For the first time since the war, He allowed someone else to touch what he had carried alone for too long. The next few days passed slowly, but something small had changed in Sergeant Cole Dawson's room. There was still the smell of oil, the scattered tools, and the quiet hum of the station's air systems, but the silence wasn't as heavy anymore. It no longer felt like a graveyard of memories. Lyra came every morning now. She didn't knock anymore. She would just glide in, carrying her small tray of food or a cleaning cloth, humming softly as she worked. Her songs had no words, only gentle sounds that seemed to calm the air itself. Sometimes Cole pretended not to notice, but he always listened. He didn't tell her, but he found her humming helped. The nightmares were still there. Faces, screams, the endless dust of Varnus Ridge. But when he woke, shaking and sweating, he could almost hear that same tune in his mind. Like it stayed with him, quietly fighting the darkness. On the fourth morning, Lyra came in to find him sitting on the floor again, tools spread everywhere. "You're still working on it?" she asked softly. Cole looked up from the chest plate. "You ever seen human armor before?" "Only yours," she said. He nodded and gestured for her to come closer. "Then you should know this isn't just protection. It's history. Each mark tells a story." She crouched beside him, her glowing eyes following his finger as he traced a burn mark near the shoulder. "That one," he said, "was from a plasma burst. Harris, my squad mate, pushed me down just before it hit. Saved my life. Cost him his?" Lyra's hands froze for a moment, her expression softening. "He must have cared for you deeply." "He cared for everyone," Cole said. That was his way. Always smiling, even in the mud. Always cracking jokes. "We used to call him Sunlight." Lyra tilted her head. "And now?" "Now he's gone," Cole whispered. His hand tightened on the metal. "And I'm still here." She watched him silently, then reached out and touched the burnt mark with her delicate fingers. Her touch was cool, almost glowing against the dark metal. "On my world," she said softly. "We believe those who protect us never truly leave. Their energy stays with the ones they saved." Cole gave a short, bitter laugh. "Energy, huh? Maybe, but it's not the same." "No," she said quietly. "It's not. But it can still light your path." He looked at her then. Really looked. The faint shimmer of her skin, the sincerity in her eyes, the way she seemed to carry peace even in a place built for war. "Lyra," he said, "how do you do it? You live among people who've seen death and blood, but you still smile. You still sing." Her lips curved in a faint, sad smile. "Because that is how we survive, Sergeant. My people do not fight with weapons. We fight with light, light," he repeated. She nodded. "We remind others that there is still beauty, that even when the universe burns, there can still be kindness." Cole stared at the floor, her words echoing in his mind. Beauty. Kindness. He hadn't used those words in years. "Maybe you should have been a soldier," he said finally. "I am," she said softly. "Just not your kind." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The faint hum of the ship's systems filled the air again, steady and quiet. Then Lyra did something unexpected. She began to hum again. Low, soothing, like a song meant for the broken. But this time she reached out and placed her hand gently over his heart. Cole froze. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Her palm was cool and a faint pulse of light glowed under her skin, reflecting faintly on his chest. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice low. She looked into his eyes. "Listening." "Listening to what?" "To the sound of a heart that has carried too much," she whispered. "It is tired, but it still beats." He swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. "You shouldn't." "I want to," she said simply, and something in the way she said it made him stop protesting. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the soldier and the alien maid, surrounded by pieces of broken armor and the hum of distant engines. Her hand rested gently against him, her presence calm and steady. When she finally moved her hand away, she said quietly, "You are still alive, Sergeant Dawson. And that means the universe hasn't finished with you yet." He let out a shaky breath, the first real one he'd taken in days. "You really think there's a reason I'm still here?" She nodded. "I do. Maybe the universe needed someone who remembers the cost of war, so others will not forget." Cole looked down at his armor, the scars, the dents, the stories carved into every inch of it. Then he looked back at her. "Maybe," he said quietly. "You're right." Lyra smiled again, faint and full of warmth. "Then maybe," she said, You are finally starting to fix the right thing. And as Cole picked up his wrench again, his hands felt lighter. For the first time since the war, the metal didn't feel cold beneath his touch. The following evening, the station was unusually quiet. The hum of engines felt softer, slower, as if even the metal walls were resting. Sergeant Cole Dawson sat near the window, staring at the endless dark outside. Beyond the glass, stars floated like dust on an ocean. He often looked at them when he couldn't sleep, hoping their silence would give him peace. It never really did, but it was better than closing his eyes and seeing the battlefield again. The door opened behind him with a familiar hiss. "Sergeant," said a soft, musical voice. Cole smiled faintly without turning. "You know, Laura, one of these days you're going to learn how to knock." "I tried," she said, walking closer, "but you never answer." He chuckled quietly. "Fair point." Laura placed a small tray on the table beside him. "You missed dinner again," she said gently. Cole looked at the food but didn't move. "Not hungry?" "You said that yesterday," she reminded him. "Yeah," he murmured. "And the day before that." For a moment, neither spoke. Laura stood beside him, her soft blue glow reflecting faintly in the window. She looked out at the stars too. "It is beautiful," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, funny thing is, out there, it never looks like this. In battle, the stars disappear behind smoke and plasma fire. You forget they even exist." She turned her head toward him. "And now?" "Now," he said quietly. "I'm trying to remember why they mattered." Laura sat down beside him, folding her long, delicate fingers in her lap. "On my world," she said, "we believe every star is a soul that found peace. When we lose someone, we look up. It helps us remember they are still shining somewhere." Cole leaned his head back against the wall. "Guess I should be seeing a whole army up there then." She looked at him sadly. "You lost many. Too many." His voice broke a little on the words. "Good people. Brave people. I keep thinking if I'd just moved faster, if I'd been smarter, maybe they'd still be here." Laura's expression softened. "You blame yourself." He didn't answer, but the truth was plain on his face. She hesitated before saying, "On Yalara, when a storm destroys our homes, we do not ask who could have stopped it. We rebuild together. We do not carry the storm forever." Cole turned his head toward her. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't," she said quietly. "I lost people too, Sergeant." Her voice trembled slightly and he sat up. "You?" she nodded. "Before I came here, there was a sickness on my world. It took my brother. He was younger than me. He always said he wanted to see the humans, to meet the ones who fight for others. He never got to." Cole stared at her, surprised. He had never heard her speak about her own life before. "I'm sorry," he said softly. She smiled sadly. "It is all right. That is why I came. To see what he wanted to see. To understand what courage looks like." He looked down at his hands, calloused and scarred. "I don't think you'd find courage in me, Laura." "But I already have," she said. He met her gaze, her glowing eyes full of quiet certainty. "You fix what is broken," she continued. "Even when it hurts. You wake up every day when you could choose not to. That is courage." Cole didn't know what to say. He'd heard words like bravery and duty before, but never like that. Not as something gentle, something human. He sighed. "Sometimes I think I fix this armor just so I don't have to fix myself." Laura reached over and touched the chest plate lying beside them. "Then maybe it is time to fix both." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You make it sound simple." "It is not simple," she said. "But it is possible." Her calm voice filled the room, and for a while they just sat there in silence. Cole felt his chest lighten, not completely, but enough to breathe a little deeper. Then Laura stood, brushing the dust off her robe. "I will come tomorrow," she said. "We will clean the rest of your armor together." He smiled faintly. "You don't have to, you know." "I know," she said, smiling back. "But I want to." As she turned to leave, Cole said softly, "Laura." She stopped and looked back. "Thanks," he said, "for listening." Her lips curved into a small, bright smile. It is easy to listen to a heart that is trying to heal. When the door closed behind her, Cole looked down at the chest plate beside him. For the first time in months, he didn't see only the damage. He saw the light catching on the metal like a reflection of the stars outside, and he realized maybe Laura was right. Maybe some things could still shine, even with cracks. The next morning, the air on the station felt different, softer, warmer, or maybe it was just Cole Dawson, he couldn't tell anymore. For the first time in months, he woke up before the alarm. His body still ached, but his mind felt a little lighter. He stood, stretched his sore shoulders, and looked around his room. The armor parts were laid neatly on the table, tools arranged in perfect lines. Lura's doing, no doubt, he smiled faintly. The Yalari maid had a way of bringing order even to the messiest corners of his life. Just then, the door slid open, and her gentle voice filled the room. "Good morning, Sergeant Dawson." He turned. "Morning, Lura, you're early." She floated in with her usual grace, carrying a small container of shining blue liquid. "Polish for the armor," she explained. "Made from Yalari resin. It can heal small cracks." "Heal?" he repeated with a raised eyebrow. "Armor doesn't heal," she smiled softly. "Maybe not yours, but ours does," Cole chuckled. "Figures. You Yalari have a fix for everything." She shook her head. "Not everything. Only what still wishes to be whole." Her words lingered in the air. Cole didn't reply, but something inside him stirred. He sat down, gesturing for her to join him. "All right then, let's see what your magic resin can do." They worked side by side for a long while. The blue liquid shimmered under the lights, filling tiny fractures in the armor like liquid stars. Lura's hands moved with gentle precision, her fingers gliding over the metal with respect, almost reverence. "You really care about this stuff, don't you?" Cole asked quietly. She nodded. "We believe that things carry memories of those who use them. This armor remembers you, Sergeant." He laughed softly. "Then it remembers a lot of bad days." "Or," she said, looking up at him, "it remembers how you survived them." Her words hit deeper than she probably knew. For a while they worked in silence. Lura's humming returned, soft, peaceful, like a lullaby for tired souls. Cole found himself breathing easier, his heartbeat falling into rhythm with her song. It reminded him of Earth lullabies, songs his mother used to hum when he was a child. He glanced at Lura. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light of the armor. "You know," he said, "your songs, they do something. I can't explain it. They calm the air," she said with a small smile, "and sometimes the heart's inside it." Cole looked away quickly, pretending to check a bolt. "Yeah, well, you're good at it." "Thank you," she said. Minutes passed. Then Lura broke the silence again. "Sergeant, may I ask you something?" "Sure. When you fight, what do you think of? What keeps you moving forward when the fear comes?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "You don't think," he said at last. "You just move. You follow orders. You protect your team. But what about when they are gone?" she asked softly. His wrench stopped mid-turn. The question cut straight through him. He stared at the half-polished chest plate. "Then you just keep moving anyway," he said. "Because if you stop, you start remembering. And that's worse." Lura lowered her gaze. "I see. You run from the pain." He looked up sharply. "You think it's that simple?" She shook her head. "No, I think it is brave. But also lonely." The room fell silent again, filled only by the quiet hum of the station. Cole didn't answer. He couldn't. After a moment, Lura placed her glowing hand gently over his scarred knuckles. Her skin felt cool, soothing. "You do not have to run here," she said softly. "Not with me," he froze. No one had touched him like that in years. Not with care, not without fear. Slowly, he turned his hand, letting his fingers rest against hers. The gesture was small, but it meant more than words could say. "You're not afraid of me," he said quietly. She looked at him with gentle eyes. "Should I be?" He almost smiled. "Most people are. Soldiers, scars, all that. You are not what you were forced to become," she said. "You are what you choose to be now." Her words were so calm, so certain that Cole had no defense against them. He looked at her glowing hand on his, then at the reflection of the two of them in the metal chest plate. Human and alien. Soldier and healer, side by side. "Maybe," he said softly. "I want to be something better." "Then you already are," Lura replied. A quiet peace filled the room. The hum of the station blended with her faint melody, wrapping around them like a soft blanket. When they finally finished working, the armor gleamed under the lights. It still bore its scars, but now they looked different. Less like wounds, more like memories polished into silver. Lura stood and looked at him with pride. "See? Even broken things can shine again. Cole smiled, really smiled this time. Yeah, he said, I guess they can. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Hey, Laura, she looked back. Thanks, he said, for reminding me what light looks like. Her lips curved into a gentle smile. You had it all along, Sergeant. You just forgot how to see it. And as she left the room, Cole sat quietly, staring at the armor that now gleamed with faint blue light. Yllari light. For the first time since the war, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like hope. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, life began to return to Sergeant Cole Dawson's eyes. He still fixed his gear, still polished the metal pieces each morning, but now, Laura was always there beside him. They worked together in quiet harmony. Her humming filled the air, soft and steady, and Cole's rough hands no longer shook when he touched the armor. Sometimes he even laughed. Small, surprised laughs that startled him as much as they pleased her. The other crew members on the station noticed the change. The man who used to walk with eyes like storm clouds now looked almost human again. He even joined them for meals once or twice, though he always sat near the corner. Quiet and watchful, Laura sat with him when she could, her presence calm and constant. One evening, they sat together in the repair room as usual. The armor stood completed on the table, polished, strong, glowing faintly under the lights. Laura traced her delicate fingers along one of the shoulder plates. It looks ready for war again, she said softly. Cole smiled faintly. Let's hope it never has to be. You say that, she replied, but your heart still listens for the battle call. He looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? Some wounds, she said, teach us to survive by expecting pain. Even when it is gone, we wait for it to return. Cole was silent for a while. He looked at the armor again. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's all I know how to do. Wait for the next fight. Laura tilted her head, studying him. Then perhaps it is time to learn something new, he chuckled. Like what? Like peace. He laughed softly, shaking his head. You make it sound easy. It is not easy, she said, smiling faintly. But it is worth learning. Before he could answer, the lights in the room flickered. The low hum of the station grew louder, deeper, like a storm rolling through the metal walls. Cole's instincts kicked in immediately. He stood, his body tense. That's not a power fluctuation, he muttered. Laura looked around, nervous. What is happening? A voice came over the intercom, sharp, urgent. All personnel report to your stations. Incoming debris from asteroid field. Impact expected in 3 minutes. Cole's blood ran cold. He moved fast, his soldier's reflexes taking over. Laura, stay here, he said. Seal the door. I'll go help in the hangar. But she grabbed his arm, her glass-like fingers trembling. You cannot go out there without protection. He turned, meeting her worried eyes. People will be hurt, Laura. I can't just sit here. Her voice shook. You will die. He looked at the armor on the table, gleaming under the flickering light. Not if I'm wearing that. Without another word, he began strapping the pieces on, each one sliding into place with familiar weight and sound. The chest plate, the shoulder guards, the helmet, each part of him coming back to life. Laura's hands hovered helplessly beside him. You just learned to live again, she whispered. Do not throw it away now. He stopped and looked at her through the cracked visor. Laura, this is who I am. I fight for others. That's what kept me alive. That's what keeps me human. Her eyes glimmered like starlight. And what keeps you alive when the fighting ends? He didn't answer. He simply reached out and pressed a hand against hers. You do, he said softly. But I have to go. Laura wanted to argue, to beg him to stay, but she saw the fire in his eyes. The same fire that had once scared her now burned with purpose, not pain. Then promise me, she said, her voice trembling. Promise you will come back. He nodded once. I promise. And before she could say another word, he was gone, the sound of his boots echoing down the corridor. The impact came minutes later. The station shook violently as fragments of rock struck its outer shell. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Alarms blared, voices shouted through comms, and the air filled with the sound of chaos. Laura stood in the repair room, trembling, listening to the storm of noise outside. She wanted to run after him, but she remembered his words, seal the door. So she waited, and prayed in her Yllari way, pressing her glowing hands to her chest, whispering a song meant for protection and hope. Time dragged. Minutes felt like hours. Then finally the noise began to fade. When the door slid open again, Cole was standing there, helmet under his arm, soot on his face but alive. Lura gasped and ran to him, her glowing form shimmering brighter with relief. "You kept your promise," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Told you I would." Her eyes glistened. "Were you hurt?" "Nothing worth worrying about," he said. "But the hangar's secure. Everyone made it." Without thinking, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Her touch was cool and soft, the light of her body glowing gently against the dark armor. For a moment, Cole just stood there, surprised, uncertain. Then he slowly lifted his arms and held her back. It was the first time he had let himself be held in years. No words were needed. In that quiet embrace between steel and starlight, something unspoken passed between them, something stronger than fear, gentler than duty. They both knew in that moment that neither of them was truly alone anymore. The days after the asteroid strike passed in a blur of repairs and recovery. The station was alive again, though wounded. The walls still bore the burns from the impacts, and the crew worked day and night to mend what had been broken. Through it all, Sergeant Cole Dawson was there, shoulder to shoulder with the others, leading without orders, helping without hesitation. For the first time since the war, he wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for life, and Lura was always nearby. She followed him through the damaged corridors, bringing tools, light, and quiet strength. Sometimes she sang softly while they worked, her voice echoing in the metallic halls like a calm wind after the storm. Her songs reminded everyone that the station still had a heart. But one evening, when the power flickered back to full strength and the emergency lights finally went dark, Lura found Cole standing alone in the viewing deck. Beyond the glass stretched a sea of stars, endless, beautiful, and silent. The asteroid field that had nearly destroyed them now glittered like silver dust in the distance. Cole stood there in his worn armor, his helmet resting at his feet. The scars on his face caught the faint starlight. "You're quiet tonight," Lura said softly as she walked up beside him. He smiled faintly. "Just thinking. About the battle?" He shook his head. "About everything before it. And after." Lura tilted her head, curious. "Do you regret going out there?" He looked at her, his eyes calm. "No, I needed to do it. Not because I wanted to fight, but because I wanted to protect." For the first time in years, it wasn't about orders. It was about choice, she smiled softly. "And you chose life." "Yeah," he said, breathing out slowly. "Maybe I finally did." For a while, they just stood there watching the stars. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, full of understanding. Then Lura's light flickered faintly and Cole frowned. "Hey, you okay?" She hesitated. "The energy reserves I used during the strike, they were not meant to last this long. I must return to my ship soon to regenerate." Cole's chest tightened. "Return? For how long?" "Cycles," she said softly. "Perhaps months. Maybe more." He looked away, jaw tightening. "Right, of course. You've got your people to go back to." She stepped closer, her glowing hand touching his arm. "And you have yours." He chuckled sadly. "Do I?" Lura's voice softened. "You have yourself, Cole Dawson. You found that again. That is more than most ever do." He turned to her, his throat tight. "You're the one who helped me find it." She smiled, her eyes warm and bright. "Then remember me when the stars are quiet. I will always hear you in their light." He tried to speak, but the words caught in his chest. Instead, he reached out and took her hand, the hand that had steadied his more times than he could count. Her fingers glowed against his rough skin, soft as a promise. "I won't forget," he said quietly. She looked up at him, her voice almost a whisper. "Nor will I forget the human who learned to shine again." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The stars outside drifted slowly, cold and endless, but inside that small station, warmth filled the space between them. Then the door behind them opened, and the low hum of a Yalari shuttle could be heard from the docking bay. It was time. Cole followed her there in silence. The crew saluted her as she passed. Even the toughest among them had grown to admire the quiet alien maid who had brought peace to a broken soldier. At the docking gate, she turned to him one last time. "I will return," she said. "Perhaps when your world needs healing again." He gave a small smile. "Or maybe just when I do." Her eyes shimmered with soft light. Perhaps both. Then she stepped aboard and the door sealed with a hiss. The shuttle drifted away, its silver hull glowing against the black of space. Cole watched until it disappeared into the sea of stars. He stood there a long time after, silent and still. The air felt emptier but not cold. Not anymore. Later that night, back in his room, Cole sat at the same workbench where it all began, the one where she had once walked in and found him lost and broken. His tools were neatly arranged, his armor resting beside him, shining faintly with the blue glow of Yellari resin. He touched the metal gently. It no longer felt like a cage. It felt like memory, like meaning. And as he looked out through the small window at the glittering stars, he could almost hear her humming, soft, distant, and full of life. He smiled, eyes warm with tears he didn't try to hide. For the first time in forever, he didn't feel like a soldier without a war. He felt like a man who had survived and finally learned to live. And somewhere out there among the endless stars, an alien Maid glowed a little brighter, because she knew he was shining too.